What is up, fellow Kryptonians? Welcome back to a brand new Superman and Lois Season 2, Episode 2 breakdown, recap, and review. And today's episode just made things that much more interesting, just as Todd Helbing has somewhat teased that there are multiple, somewhat antagonists this season. Not just the obvious Doomsday, of which we got a lot of developments this episode for, but there was, subtle things hinted in between. As we know, Lois's sister is going to be coming into this season, and we have quite the storyline being set up for the Smallville Gazette, and that's still on top of whatever is cooking with Anderson and his team of supers. Again, we even got Tal-Rho this episode. I don't think that's necessarily going to go down the field of antagonistic stuff, but that's still in mind with Doomsday and whatever else they've got to, surprise us with this season. So without wasting much more time, guys, go ahead and like this video only if you do go on to enjoy it. And of course, maybe consider subscribing if you are brand new here for a Superman and Lois breakdown each and every week. So this episode picked up with a little bit of an extended family thing, even though it didn't work out so well because it turns out Natalie is vegan. So that kind of cut Lois's breakfast short. But that is, well, technically Clark did almost, because that's when he started getting whammied again. Hearing these roars and screams and echoing punches, I think we all knew what this was leading up to. And if you watched my review last week, you'll know that right at the end of that video I posted, we got into Todd Helbing's comments of where he basically revealed and confirmed that it is indeed Doomsday, and how in the second episode we'll see a bit more of him, and how in the third episode we will get the answers, or mainly the big reveal. But this episode was also very much so about diving into what is going on with Clark. I like how they try to throw us down this alleyway of, oh, did it sound like a planet being destroyed? Oh, could these be residual memories from Zod? And, that would be kind of cool, because then, yeah, there would be real repercussions from the X scare of last season. If you do somewhat suffer with the memories of one of the Kryptonian hosts still lingering after all this time, that could be very problematic. But obviously, it's not that. Jordan's not experiencing anything like this. As we learn from Tal-Rho later on, he was infused with more Kryptonian personalities than anyone, and he's not experiencing anything. And as we kind of knew anyway, it was all to do with Doomsday, albeit that it is still fascinating, why is Doomsday connecting with Clark exactly? As for the storyline with Kyle and Lana this episode, it kind of went where I thought it was going to go. As soon as Daniel dropped out the mayor race, I was just like, well, there is one candidate, which is kind of obvious. Depends if she wants to take the role, but are they going to do that? And then as the episode unfolded, right towards the very end, we had Kyle come home from work and basically say that he's got all the signatures from his fire department advocating for Lana to run for mayor. And it turned out that she was filling out the paperwork anyway. It was a very, very, very predictable storyline this episode for them. Not that predictability, as I always say, is a bad thing. It just means I saw it coming. And for her character, I am somewhat looking forward to that, because as Kyle put it, as of right now on the show, I mean, sure, there are other people who really love Smallville, like Clark himself, but the main one at the moment is really Lana. She kind of is somewhat like Martha, or the Martha that they showed in season 1. She is the current day younger Martha, really trying to help improve the town. They really got into that hard at the end of season 1. So I feel like this is going to be a good storyline for them. This is when we cut to school. We have one of Jonathan's friends from the football team just talking about conserving his strength for the weight room. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But then we also had Jordan wondering if Sarah wanted to go to lunch, and it turns out that she'd forgot. And obviously, a lot of you were putting down in the comments of that, oh, Sarah's clearly met someone at camp, and everyone was basically right there. Honestly, in the meantime, I just felt so bad for Jordan. Normally, I'm used to feeling bad for Jonathan pretty regularly, but especially with what's going on with Jordan, who's just really trying, it makes me my heart sink for him a little bit. This is when Natalie meets Sarah, and this all gets to that part in where she really helps out with Sarah's car, or was it Kyle's car for Sarah? I don't know, the Firebird, of which, as she knows, she is well equipped to handle that, and she almost let something slip about her life with the bunker, which, as we all know, Sarah keeps getting teased things ever since season 1, but obviously she doesn't have enough pieces of the puzzle together, and that's been one consistent question, especially when it came to Jordan and Sarah being together. Would she find out? Does this make things delayed a bit for Sarah, since what happened at the end of this episode between them might put a bit of a wedge, so maybe Sarah might not find out anything to do with Kryptonian stuff for quite some time. I do not know, but I digress. Thankfully, Natalie managed to encourage Sarah to basically tell the truth, because there's obviously a secret being kept. And you know what? I'll just talk about it now, because we're talking about all of this stuff. When Natalie returned back home, Sarah obviously went with them, and Jordan came out, oh, just like, you know, have I done anything wrong? I've been trying to work it out, but I don't think I have. And that's where she said at camp, just like what everyone thought in the comments, that she had met someone, and it turned out that she kissed freaking Aubrey. Aubrey, it's all your fault. So she thought they were just friends or something, but then it just kind of happened. The one thing that irritated me is, like, she kept saying, like, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean anything. But it's just like, okay, so maybe it doesn't to you, but like what you did still means something to the person you've hurt. So yeah, I'm kind of glad that Jordan was just like, I'll see you at school, and walked away, because she was just like, well, it doesn't matter, Jordan. It didn't mean anything. But it did, though. It did. So screw you, Sarah. You made a mistake. I mean, I know these things happen, especially at their age in the show, but it doesn't stop me feeling bad for Jordan. What does this mean in the grand scheme of things, without going on about this part of the episode for too much longer? I think they'll find their way back together. Plus, for all we knew, I don't know quite how to gauge this. When Sarah came back and she's saying that it doesn't mean anything, is she still interested in Aubrey? Because I feel like those times when she was on her phone at the locker, she was texting the girl Aubrey that she met at camp or something. But if it doesn't mean anything, and it just happened, as she said to Jordan at the Ken farm at the end, well, was it just a camp thing, as she says, and that she still is interested in Jordan? Because that's something we don't properly know yet. Is there being some kind of contact maintained between her and Aubrey, or not? And it was just a thing, and she's trying to work her way back to Jordan, but the stuff that we've been seeing over the past couple of episodes was maybe just her feeling guilty and not being able to resume things with him normally until things were out in the open. I don't know there. Obviously, this is a lot of teenagey drama, ramery, relationshipy, whippy stuff, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, but leave me your thoughts about it anyway. Now, as for Smallville Gazette, I've been waiting for this to kind of take flight for quite a... Well, it's only episode 2, but I've been waiting for it to take flight with whatever's going on here, because as I said with Todd Helbing, he's teased multiple villains. So with the Smallville Gazette storyline, I know we have a bit of friction between Lois and Chrissy, which seems to be working itself out. Like, they're communicating a bit more this episode, but there's still frustration being shown on Chrissy's end, because it seems that a story of Lois's that she put out years ago is coming back to bite her in the ass. And this is something that I'm quite looking forward to, because as an actual established plot line in this show, you have a Smallville paper, you have the famous reporter Lois Lane working there, you're trying to get subscribers to the Smallville Gazette, it's trying to take flight as a business and a name and reputation. That's quite a thing in of itself to kind of rally for, and look forward to seeing actually develop throughout the show and the season. But now there's something problematic for them to overcome with their own antagonist, if you will, and that's something in Lois's past, in where this podcast came out, and it's about journalists who abuse their power for personal reasons, and it's about Ali Alston's, I believe her name was, this cult leader who was responsible for a woman's death. She was never convicted, and it was interesting seeing Chrissy somewhat play a bit of a objective standpoint here and questioning Lois about a couple of things. And she's now accusing people such as Lois that she may have coerced one or more of her sources in the paper that she wrote about her. Lois is very adamant that she vetted everyone and they were all willing. She did everything by the book, but again, somewhat from an objective standpoint, Chrissy does say, yeah, but you don't when it comes to your family, I suppose, and that's when you have your own set of rules. And it turns out that the family and personal connection she had to this story was her own sister, Lucy Lane. So where initially she was saying, don't worry, it's me, Lois Lane, I get attacked all the time, people try to do it all the time, this will blow over. By the end of the episode, this podcast went very, very viral. And next week, they're talking to one of Lois's sources, the one who basically recanted their whole story that they told to Lois years and years prior. And Chrissy even says the line of, if your sister is the one changing her story, it doesn't matter how right you were, the public's never gonna believe you. And the fact that they even entertained, your sister could be the one leaking it. I mean, it could have been any of the sources who were recanting their story as a witness witness that they told Lois from years and years ago. So I find it very interesting that they focused on Lucy being the one maybe going back on what she told Lois years ago. That would cause all kinds of family drama in of itself. I mean, think about it. This is not only your sister, but your sister who was in the cult, and also one you brought out the cult after an almost very near tragic ending happened with her almost taking her own life, which is, it's all kinds of messed up. So I really hope it isn't Lucy, and it does turn out to be one of the other sources. And regardless, Lucy can still come into the show, as we know she is, and become quite an important resource for them, considering that she was actually in the cult with Ali, and she might be able to help Lois tackle and, you know, defend these accusations. Personally, I'm quite happy with this, as long as it doesn't like overshadow like the really engaging plot with Doomsday and stuff. It will be fine, because obviously that means we've got multiple plot lines for multiple different characters and multiple different things in the show, and as long as it doesn't take away too much attention from other things, it only stands to be like a strong thing, considering, well, the Smallville Gazette needs some kind of story to be going along with, and something that Chrissy and Lois can tackle together that is also not just simple, but formidable. In the meantime, their story that they were working on for the Gazette was to go to the mines and ask a little bit more about the earthquakes. We have a very interesting character of Dr. Faulkner, I believe her name was, of whom is just saying, well, we don't really know what it is either, we haven't really mined deep enough, but clearly, with the very end of the episode, whoever the heck she's talking to and whatever involvement she has in this, is all in their own self-interest for some reason. They're probably trying to bring about Doomsday, if anything, but they're completely denying it to Chrissy and Lois. I also like how the XK is being brought up in this moment and several times throughout the episode, because they're concerned about the XK still in the mines and what this company could be doing with that, or what people could do with that, but they're claiming that they're doing a public service. Exactly. Who knows what XK could be like in the wrong hands, of which we learn later on in the episode with that fight between Superman and the guy, and that it's being sold on the black market. People can just inhale it now and get temporary strength that can batter Superman as if it was like the Hulk slamming down Loki in the Avengers movie. So I feel like that's going to keep going on throughout this season, but for now, this is when Lois started to enlist her own help through John Henry Irons, who could set up a scanner to monitor the tremors and earthquakes and help just isolate what the heck is actually causing all of this. Meanwhile, though, we had Superman looking into this as well, even though at the same time it was more him just trying to figure out what his whammying effects are, because at this point in time, they didn't quite make the connection that the earthquakes are 100% linked to every time he gets whammied. So he goes to visit Tal-Rho, aka Morgan Edge, and I kind of completely forgot for a moment. I remember this was one of my critical things of last season's finale, in that he did survive, when they had already established that when the Eradicator took over him, it basically got rid of Tal-Rho, but no, Tal-Rho is still here. He's been kept in prison this whole time. I just totally forgot that after basically the climax of the finale, he was just in the rubble and he was still about. And this led to an interesting conversation between Tal-Rho and Superman. I love seeing these two act on screen together. I always forget the actor's name for Morgan Edge, but I think he's absolutely phenomenal, especially if he has like a emotional line to deliver. He always delivers it with such sincerity, especially when it came to the scenes with Lara later on, and just this kind of warped perspective he has, obviously, as a result of his own, I wouldn't say it's abandonment, but like obviously his upbringing with his father compared to Clark's and the Kents. You can understand how he's a product of what he's been through. If anything, you pity him and you want to see good in him. And it's almost that cliche kind of villainous origin, especially when it's like mirrored through the parallels of brother and brother. One being very good, one being, oh, you feel sorry for him as to how he turned out this way, but he still technically could be good. It's just still great. But this is when he walks out of their conversation, returns back to Lois and John saying his brother isn't going to be of any help. This is when he hears the gunfire. We get that little Superman exchange with that guy at the airport. He breathes in some XK stuff and he gets temporary super strength, which was a little bit of an embarrassing moment for Superman because he got whammied at the same time. And last episode I was talking about Tag, and lo and behold, Anderson's team arrive with more members in it this time, one including Tag. This leads to that moment from the trailers in where we had that line from Anderson saying that Superman is less of a hero but more of a liability now. This really probably just makes Anderson feel absolutely great. He can't get this guy to join his team, and it's like, haha, look, you couldn't even do this, but my team could do it. Anderson is like, I want to believe he has the best intentions at heart, but like, he he still is a bit of a dick because he could still be going about several different things differently. And I just don't like it when he says things like, if you're not going to be a part of the threat reduction agency anymore, you don't have free reign anymore. And it's just like, dude, shut the hell up. He's Superman. He can fly in whenever and wherever to save whatever in whatever country. It doesn't matter. You can't tell him he doesn't have free reign anymore. And when he says, like, you don't want to be a part of the team, I get it, but that means no more backups or whatever's going. It's just like, dude, Superman doesn't need your backup. And I argue he would have been okay in the airport scene because, yeah, he would have got beaten up quite a lot, but after the whammying was over, he probably would have recovered. I don't choose to look at that as a situation that if it wasn't for Anderson's team, that Superman would have died. No, I just don't believe that. So, yeah, screw you, Anderson. And I feel like Anderson's only probably, especially when he divulges a bit more about the XK and how that guy was a black market weapons dealer or something, and how XK's been on the black market. Does anyone vibe? I hope it's not this straightforward. I really hope they make it something really cool, but does anyone vibe that it might be quite predictable if they take Anderson down the route of inhaling XK himself to become, I don't know, his own US agent type thing? I don't know. I can't really call it, but I just feel like there's going to be more than just a superhero team with this guy. He'll probably want a taste for it himself. Just to chuck a theory out there, when Doomsday goes full on ham, maybe Doomsday is not only taking on Superman, but the super team, including Tag, and they're not up to scratch with it, so maybe Anderson feels like he has to almost take the super soldier serum himself, so to speak. It could go down that route where he just feels like he has to, for the sake of the military integrity and my team, I have to become super... I don't know. But let me know your theories. When we revisit Jonathan, who's basically in the gym class or whatever, with his football team, that guy's like benching 300 pounds or something. He thinks he's on steroids, but I'm just putting this out there. What if somehow the XK has even got to a street level? I know that sounds a bit far-fetched, I do admit, but like, yeah, maybe it could be on roids, and maybe this could put Jonathan down a dark storyline, because I've heard there's a storyline for him this season that could be a bit like dodgy. So I hope that he doesn't get peer pressure to also take them, because the more I entertain it, the more it starts to make sense for me. I mean, think about it. His brother is Superboy, of which in this episode they pushed it in our faces that his powers are maturing even more than what they were last season. Like, he's only getting stronger. So we're seeing his Pokemon rival, if you will, bench 300, his brother being a Superboy, so to speak, and Jonathan is just like the normie in the family, along with his mother, I suppose you could say. Maybe that is where it kind of goes. He feels like he needs to compensate for something like that with doing whatever this other guy is doing, which I know I said XK, but like, it does seem a bit weird if that was street level, so maybe it is roids, but yeah, we're gonna have to wait and see there. But you could see how envious he was. He was almost a bit like angry looking at him in that moment. So this is where Clark returns home, basically takes Jordan with him to Tal-Rho's fortress because he somewhat wanted some backup here. This is where Tal-Rho pulled out a little surprise of his own, quite literally pulled this crystal out the wall, and lo and behold, Superman's mother is there, and Tal-Rho's mother as well, and Jordan's grandma. I like how he's like, hi grandma. We actually got to see her not in Lana this time, but actually in her holographic-y kind of AI consciousness form, which was definitely a nice, pleasant surprise for this episode, and one that I think a lot of us have been theorizing about for some time, and how with Jor-El gone now, maybe the new AI of the Fortress of Solitude can indeed be Lara, but she was just in Tal-Rho's fortress, but maybe she can be taken back to Clark's. We're gonna have to wait and see there. This is what I mean about the great acting from Morgan Edge, in terms of like, there was a lot of family issues getting brought about here with how obviously where they're both at this moment in time. Initially just saw them both together, like, oh, like my son, my boy, you know, I'll look at you two, you're all great, but then it's like, oh, no, wait, one of you is Superman, but the other one also tried to commit genocide and things like that. So there was a lot to be figured out, but again, a lot of this pain and, you know, reasoning for Tal-Rho comes from a very tragic origin, and I felt like they got that across quite well this episode. Eventually, though, Clark explained the visions, and this is where things started happening. Also, I just like how Superman and Lois does this, because I've mentioned it many episodes before in Season 1, but usually where there's big shit going down, they have scenes scenes darting around the place, like what's going on with Lois and John Henry Irons, with the scanner, with the earthquake starting to come in this moment, but then it cuts back to Tal-Rho's fortress with Superman getting whammied, obviously Tal-Rho having a bit of a fight with Jordan. It's just, it does a really good job at getting up to the climax through offering these very tense scenes with different characters in different areas of the episode. So as Clark was getting whammied again, well, Tal-Rho was just like, ding! So he does have his powers, and I was going to say, if his powers got taken away from the solar missile of John Henry Irons, I was thinking, like, isn't that meant to be like a temporary thing? Like, so John Henry Irons actually has the ability to take away a Kryptonian's powers just like that forevermore. I didn't buy it, or if that was the case, as I said, I would have had a bit of a problem with it, but it turns out that wasn't the case, and he does have his powers, and I'm very proud of Jordan, because you can see he was a bit afraid, but he had the courage to step up to him again, and there was a demonstration of his powers increasing, because not only did he laser Morgan Edge in that moment, and he was just like, holy crap, he then started bashing him and punching him. And Tal-Rho / Morgan Edge even acknowledged in that moment that his powers are maturing. So that really does signify we're going to get even bigger steps towards Superboy, if you will, this season. As I was saying, scenes started left, right, and center. We go back to the mines of where Doomsday is getting pretty pissed, and we get the miners' perspectives. And we basically get to this moment where Doomsday had reached the level of where the miners were, and one of the miners has like, a detonation device for controlled explosions that they do in the mines to, just get access and further access to further areas. And that's where we could kind of make Doomsday out. Now, obviously, it's quite dark, and we're going to get the full reveal in next episode, as Todd Helbing said. But from what I can make out, it is, as a lot of us thought, a very early Doomsday design, but also he just kind of reminds me of Bioshock. If any of you have played the Bioshock games on Xbox or whatever, a Big Daddy from that world, one of those big kind of like diving gear with the drills on them. Obviously, he's not a literal Big Daddy, but it reminds me of the kind of get-up they're going for with him, that he could be more Bioshock Big Daddy like, rather than, I don't know, like BVS type Doomsday. Around about this time though, Clark recovered from being whammied. He went crazy at Tal-Rho, which, Superman just does if he sees red when it comes to his family. And what he saw in that moment is his son being choked. Like, he could have done the Man of Steel ending to Jordan if he wanted to in that moment. And also kudos to Lara for trying to keep Tal-Rho from doing that. But yeah, if it wasn't for Lara also having a go at Clark for stopping him from beating Tal-Rho, who knows where that could have gone. And also, let me know, do you really think that Tal-Rho would have gone through with maybe even killing Jordan, his nephew? I do believe there is kind of good in him, like Superman kind of says, but he wants to believe there is. He doesn't think there is for now, but at least he wants to believe that with that closing scene between them in the prison cell shortly after this. And I think that means that we could be getting another scene with him later, doing something quite selfless maybe, or maybe they will use him again in a future episode where just something happens where he doesn't have to do it, but he does do it anyway, and he was just like, you were right about me, or Mother was right about me, Clark, or Kal-El, and he does something that, I don't know, really helps them out with Doomsday. Maybe if they're doing the death of Superman, so to speak, storyline this season, which I don't think they're going to go as cliche as death of Superman, by the way. Now we're kind of entering theory field. What if, again, as to what I was just explaining with a self-sacrificing moment from Tal-Rho, potentially he is the one who maybe gets spiked by Doomsday, if they're going to try and adapt a similar storyline in where Superman almost dies, but nope, Tal-Rho comes out of nowhere and takes the brunt of the force. I know that is very cliche, very predictable, but I feel like there's somewhat seeding some moment up for Tal-Rho to have a redeeming moment in the future, and I feel like a perfect way to do that would be a moment where Doomsday is about to kill Kal-El and his own brother stops that from happening. At the end of the episode, John Henry Irons, Lois, and Clark put it together that the earthquakes are linked to when every single time Clark had a whammying moment, all the way back to the submarine in Korea. And he reveals that Lara, his mother, said that he knows what's wrong with him, and that is that it was caused by some invasive cosmological event. And specifically, it's called an interdimensional kinesthesis. I could have said that wrong, but using the word interdimensional, does that infer that Doomsday is somehow planted there from like another Earth or another dimension? I don't know, because I think it'd be lame if they kind of did something like, oh, this is another Superman after all, who is really Doomsday, and that's why Clark is connected to the other version of himself. And no, really, by the way, I'm not saying Doomsday is evil Superman in a big hulking suit or whatever. I am wondering, though, why they're connected. Could this mean that Doomsday does somehow pertain to the being that is Clark on this world? And the reason why that connection is established is because Doomsday is an interdimensional thing. I don't know. This is where things get a bit weird. Also, what the heck and why the heck is he buried that far underneath the ground? Like, what? Why? Like, I genuinely don't have these answers, and I'm very looking forward to getting them. Why would a Doomsday or the Doomsday be buried that deep in the core of the Earth, who's now only just made his way up, but the miners with the explosion put a bit of a delay on that. But obviously, as we know, next episode, more whammying is to come, and not only that, a reveal. One where I don't think Superman will be able to reckon with it. It will take Anderson and Superman's team combined to even make a dent. Even then, that probably won't make a proper dent, and that's where maybe the Tal-Rho theory comes in, and he might have a redeeming moment where he gets himself killed. Who knows there? That's really cliche predictable, but it could be bleeding along those lines. I would love to know your theories as to what you think interdimensional kindness thesis means. I guess they could put another storyline on it and how for some reason they banished this Doomsday creature from Krypton ages and ages ago and it landed on Earth, and ever since then, I don't know, climate change and stuff, he was just buried that deep over millions of years. They could go something like that route, but again, why would he only be connected to Superman, and why wouldn't Tal-Rho and other Kryptonians like half Kryptonian Jordan be experiencing these visions as well? What exactly is it that makes it unique to Kal-El / Superman? But anyway, everyone, I've been rambling for long enough in this episode breakdown, so let me know all of your thoughts down in the comments below. I want to hear theories. I want to hear what you think about Tal-Rho, what you think about Lara. Could she be put in the Fortress of Solitude now? Do you think there could be a redeeming factor to Tal-Rho now since they're setting those seeds up? What do you think of the Smallville Gazette storyline? Do you think it is Lucy? Do you really think she's gonna take back what she said as a source to Lois all of those years ago? There's lots of things going on this season, of which so far I think they're juggling it quite well in 2 episodes, but again, with so many plots going on, you could argue that it could take away from some others that might need a bit more of a spotlight on, but that is too presumptuous to talk about right now. We'll have to wait and see how it unfolds, but so far, I don't really have any complaints. I'm enjoying Superman and Lois Season 2. I know some of you didn't find the premiere episode like as great as what you'd wanted it to be, but for me, it served the job well. Gotta be interesting to see what you guys think about Episode 2. So again, let me know down in the comments below. Let me know on Twitter. I have links in my description and top pinned comment. You can follow me on Twitter. Discord server link is there as well, and other links you may be interested in checking out. But other than that, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you fellow Kryptonians in the next video. Goodbye.